What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Jacked Ramsays live show. It's an emergency podcast. Danny Marang, Brandon Sprague. The comments are already pouring in. Yes, we'll let everybody else get in here real quick. Quick mention always, like, rate, review, subscribe. Help us grow the show. If you're watching here live and you haven't already, please click subscribe on the subscribe button. It's free. It's help us grow the channel. We know there's going to be a million questions. We'll get through our views, our thoughts, the transactional part of all of this, and then we'll kind of go through step by step, and we'll take some questions and stuff. This is going to take the place of the pregame show today because it's Oklahoma City Thunder, and I just don't care about doing this again because we just did this on Monday.
Who gives a shit?
I do not care. This is obviously the big news of the day. There are a couple things like to go through here. First of all, the official transaction as reported by Adrian Wojnarowski. The Clippers are trading Eric Bledsoe, Justise Winslow, Keon Johnson, and a future second-round pick to the Trailblazers for Norman Powell and Robert Covington. That is the official transaction right now. Whew. Remember all those people in the comments? And I know some of you are in here already. It's going to be quiet. They're not going to make any deals. They're not going to do this. I kept telling you they're going to do more than you expect.
Yeah.
Here you go. I don't like the I told you so a whole lot, but I'm going to I told you so because they're not done. I think that's what we'll get into here in a little bit. Brandon, what is your first thought? What is your first thought on when you saw this trade break 2 hours ago?
A guy can't enjoy brunch with family, evidently. I
texted you and you didn't respond immediately, and I was like, hey, he's not around.
I have some cousins from out of town in town today. We met up for brunch, and I'm like, okay, we got 6 days to the deadline. They're probably not going to do anything today. Put the phone in the old pocket. All of a sudden, the vibrations are going off. I'm like, it's probably my wife.
Sounds like Morse code in your pocket.
And then I see your text, and your text doesn't like, what do you think? How about that trade? It basically says, we'll just go early tonight. And I'm like, what is he talking about? And I'm like, oh, no. Open Twitter, boom, trade. My first thought was, that was all we got for Norman Powell, huh? I knew Cov wouldn't give us a whole lot. But my first reaction was I expected maybe a slightly different trade involving Norman Powell. It makes sense for the Clippers' point of view. He'd be a good third option if you can get Kawhi and Paul George to come back. And it'd be a good opportunity for the Clippers to maybe make some noise in the playoffs. But admittedly, I was probably one of many people that thought there'd be a bigger deal involving Norman Powell in terms of talent and or draft capital coming back.
I will say, as a singular transaction, this transaction sucks.
It's not a good trade if you're just looking at just this, yes.
If you're looking at, they traded Norman Powell and Robert Covington for that, how does that make this team better? But what have I tried to drive home for the last 2 weeks, Brandon?
One move leads to another move that may lead to another move.
And that's why 6 days before the trade deadline, I am not jumping off the top rope, dropping the people's elbow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we get to February 11th, this is the one transaction they have made. The people's elbow turns into riots with pitchforks and torches.
I will contemplate quitting on this team if there's no more movement after February 10th.
Okay, here's a quick little wrinkle to all of this that I wanted to highlight. Eric Pincus, who's very, 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 very good with the salary cap in the NBA. He's one of the guys that helps teach it, I think, in the sports business classroom. He notes the decision on Bledsoe's contract, which is partially guaranteed next year for $3.9 million.
$3.9.
That does matter. That does matter, folks. That is a significant difference between $18+ million for Eric Bledsoe.
Yes.
That decision does not need to be made until early July.
Yeah.
So that means they have basically $18 million of floating cap that they can use as ballast in another deal up into basically the first couple days of free agency.
Mm-hmm.
So while I don't think Eric Bledsoe plays for the Trailblazers, I would be wildly surprised. I would be wildly surprised at somebody saying they're mixing up my wrestling. No. I'm saying full-heartedly that you're going to drop the people's elbow off the top rope. I know what the people's elbow is, guys.
But how are you going to do the back and forth and the jump over? How are you going to do that on top rope, though? I think that's the point of the listener.
That's what I'm saying. We're getting wild. We're taking it up notches. We're not
Are
just
we doing
doing
like a
people's
Hell in the
elbow.
Cell. We're
coming off top of the cage. That's what.
Okay,
see, that's what I
right.
should have said. That's what I
Okay.
should have said.
Okay.
But this is not the end of it. That is where I get through this. Let's go piece by piece. Mm-hmm. Cov basically got you Justise Winslow in a second-round pick.
Yes. Well, yeah.
That's what Cov got you.
None of those really get me excited for any reason.
No.
But you know what? That's about the level I kind of expected.
Remember we were talking about the whole idea of like getting a player that's just like, take a flyer on him, see what happens.
Yes.
Get a little more younger, get a little more athletic.
I'm also okay with them trading him. I don't think he doesn't have any room to grow. He is who he is.
And that's kind of where we're at. And I think that's just see what happens. And you know what? I sent this text earlier. Over or under 1.5 players in this trade being on the Blazers roster next season?
Under.
Okay, good. You were
imagine if it's anybody on.
It's Keon.
It's Keon because he's on a rookie deal. He's what, 6'6"?
He's 6'6".
6'6". Okay.
Stupidly athletic.
Sure.
Stupidly athletic.
Yeah. But I would bet it would be him of the three. Yeah.
Okay. Justise, he may end up on the team next season just because he's just not been good. He has had shout out hip replacement crew. Justise has had his hip replaced. As crazy as that is in the NBA. Injuries have kind of derailed him and he can't shoot. But I look at this deal and it's just like, you were going to lose Covington for nothing, so you got something for him. Is it the best thing? No. And I am not making any excuses for this. I am entirely holding reservations on the orders of these transactions until after the trade deadline. Is that where you were sitting with this?
100%. I mean, I don't want to lie to anybody. I saw the trade. I thought about the trade.
And you went,
and I said, that's a shitty trade. And there's a lot of people on social media just completely trashing Joe Cronin and the team. And look, I actually understand it. I think if you would have talked about Norm being moved, people would have fallen, and it looks like they are, of like, that's what we get?
So
that's what Norman Powell for
Perspective.
Okay.
If Norman Powell was going to be traded into New Orleans' TPE, which is something I heard was actively discussed, and a first-round pick was sent back, it was not going to be a great first-round pick. It was not going to be a great first-round pick. It was going to be a first-round pick. And this is how I think the Blazers are probably going to end up spinning this, is that Keon Johnson is basically a first-round pick because he's 19 years old. And
he just got drafted.
And he was 21st pick last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
That's a nihilism, by the way.
It is. It is very, and it's a nihilism, and it came from the Clippers, which makes me a little bit leery.
Mm-hmm.
It does make me a little bit leery. But the flip side of this is, what did we say the ultimate goal was going to be? First, getting below the luxury tax.
Mm-hmm.
They got below the luxury tax with this deal alone.
Yes.
That frees their hands to be able to do other things. That truly has happened now. They are almost $4 million below the tax, I believe. Oh, excuse me. This deal was $4 million, which frees up about $1 million below the cap from what they needed. Sorry, I mathed horribly there for a second.
Well, there's a lot of numbers going out today, so it's okay to mix them up a little bit.
Yeah. When I'm looking at this in its entirety,
mm-hmm.
the thing that I have been told just a couple hours ago is that the Blazers are actively trying to trade C.J. McCollum. That is 100% something that is being pursued.
I mean, they're actively tanking now.
Thank you. That's where I was going to get to this next part of this is. Remember, was it last night? Or the night before last? Was it the live show or the post-game show? I think it might have been after the Lakers game where we said, yeah, that's a 1-3 road trip. Nasir's done for the season. They're going to make a course correction pretty quickly.
It was both, by the way. We said this on the post-game, and then you brought up in the live when we were talking
They all
about
blend together.
I know. What day is it?
They're tanking.
They're going to tank hard, by the way.
Let me make sure. Where's let's get that up on the screen. Whoop! There it is. There's our screen. There's our tank. Our beautiful, beautiful tank. Let me go ahead and move that over. There you go, so everybody can see them nice and clear. The next part of this is stop saying fire Joe Cronin.
I mean, look,
give it time.
I know.
You gave Terry Stotts 8.5 years, and then you gave Neil 9 years, and you gave Joe Cronin 3 months.
Well, okay. So there's a lot to unpack just in that itself, right? I try not to go to Twitter after seeing the trade. I close my app. I put my phone in my pocket because I'm like, I'm not going to do the thing that everybody is doing right now. Oh my God. What are we doing? I got a clip I can play of you of Antonio Daniels on NBA radio absolutely freaking the F out. They're going to trade Dame next. Look, they know they're tanking. Dame knows they're tanking. He will not play the rest of the year. They will trade their assets that they have that actually get in the way of them tanking. They will play Ant and a bunch of dudes, and they will say, Ant, go get 35, and we're going to get waxed by 15 every night. This rush to fire people, this rush to conclude what the trade deadline is for Portland, it's bad trade, okay? That's the honest truth about this. This is not a great trade. It did exactly what Danny said. It got you below the tax, which people don't care, but for Jody Allen and the Vulcans, they care. I don't like that trade, but I'm sitting here exactly with what you said. We have 6 days left of this. Let's see what the next trade is. Let's see if there's any part of this trade that gets moved in another trade. Mm-hmm. And this idea of you need to fire somebody, he is an interim. And not even the general manager.
He hasn't even. We talked about this for an hour yesterday. He hasn't even hit the label yet.
He's like, guys, I don't even really work here yet. I think the overreaction. It's okay to not like a trade. It's more the rush to conclusions. They suck. There's no way they're going to get better than what they are, and we're going to lose Dame for nothing. Mm-hmm. And this is it for us. It's frustration. I get it. But the overreaction is crazy. We have 6 more days of this. This is why I've said it too many times to count. I don't think Blazer fan knows what they want. I don't think they know if they want to tank. I don't think if they know they want to keep CJ, if they want to keep Nurk, do they want to build with Dame? Do they not want to build with Dame? There are so many people all over the place. I'm not going to allow myself to overreact to 22 people on Twitter saying fire Joe Cronin, who, by the way, may not watch any basketball on a nightly basis. They're just saying it to say it. I'm not going to allow that.
Here's the other thing. You know what I find really funny about this trade? Joe Cronin's first personnel decision as interim GM was to undo Neil O'Shea's last 2 transactions.
Oh, I mean, I was hoping we would get to that at some point in this, Danny, because how crazy is it that the dude we traded Gary Trent for then signed because we had to sign him because nobody else was going to sign here. We traded him 5 months after we signed him to a 5-year contract. There needs to be a 30 for 30 locally made on what that Neil O'Shea era was.
And this is why. Nobody believed or didn't understand when I said Norm didn't want to be here. But it got him the money and it got him the extra years and it drug this out. And something that's Ogun Guitar says this can't be spun. We sold laughably low on a very good 2-way shooting guard contract under market AAV averaging a value contract. Mm-hmm. Trash. I'm going to push back very hard on that. He is not an under market average value contract. Absolutely unequivocally not. He is standing top of the market starting value shooting guard. Mm-hmm. Every damn 2 guard on the market. Evan Fournier got this same exact deal in the summer. Everyone got this deal. Everyone got this deal. I can't remember who said it, but they're like, the shooting guards came together and colluded with this offseason, and everybody got the same money. And I know a bunch of people in here were like, we should have kept Gary. We should have kept Gary. Okay, cool. Well, then you should have fired Neil the year before or the year before that because he wasn't trading C.J. McCollum, which would have allowed you to keep Gary Trent Jr. because he wasn't going to stay here and play behind C.J. McCollum. So, again, Neil.
Yeah, I don't think those people – I would assume that those people wouldn't disagree with what you just said, though, that you should have fired – if you wanted Gary Trent, and boy, oh boy, is it looking like a bad trade today – you should have fired Neil. I don't think those people would disagree with that.
Yeah. So the idea of
Danny, I think people I'm just spitballing here, man. Like I can't tell you how everybody feels, but like the projection or like the way it looks to me, it looks like a fan base that has been bamboozled. They have been lied or manipulated with,
and they don't trust.
And
anything.
They don't trust them. And you know what?
Yes,
we're pumping the brakes. I love it. Like I kind of love it because it's like this organization. Truthfully, we have friends that work for that team. We've rooted for that team for a long time. This organization does not deserve a benefit of the doubt. I'm more just saying the timeline, right? 6 days. They got 6 days. I'm just as pissed as everybody else that was the return that Norm gave you. But I don't blame people for being upset. Why should you trust this organization? The owner hasn't even said a word since she took ownership.
No, she has. She said no comment.
Not in front of a camera.
Yeah, no, Jason Quick.
In front of Jason Quick. We've never heard her voice.
It's true.
So, like, that's what I'm saying is we've never heard her talk. Bert Cole doesn't talk. I don't blame people for being upset. I'm more like the reaction of like, there's no other way that this can get better for them. That's where I would just say, we'll wait 6 days. But I also don't blame you for not wanting to trust.
It's a great point because Doug Emmons, I think he sums this up really well. He says, we want to see something positive. We as fans are so used to seeing nothing but nothing trades and fake hopes and dreams. Yes, because you got used car salesmen for a decade. There was never any kind of delivery on the hopes and dreams and promises, and no risks were ever taken.
No.
And again, I am with every single one of you. Every single one of you, if we get to really August 1st is the date. And Dame CJ Nurk is the foundation of this team. I'm probably going to lose my collective shit like you would not believe. And not in a sense of like performative, like I genuinely might just shutter this whole thing and be done with it because it's not worth my time and effort for an organization that does not care.
Let me push back just a little on what you just said there. You said August 1st.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are giving this 6 days.
I do too, and that's why I again.
I don't know if we got till August
for me because I know the reality of what's going on, at least this much behind the scenes, of what they're trying to do. They are actively trying to trade C.J. McCollum harder than that has ever happened.
What about Nurkic? Why are they actively trying to trade him as hard as they ever can? People are done with this nucleus.
I get it. You know where I sit on this.
I know. I'm just like, we're playing the
other side of this. Sure.
Yeah.
I genuinely look at this and I think that they still look at Nurk's value and they aren't sure how to justify that around what roster they have. Because he does cover up for a lot of the sins, just not all of them. And in the free agent market, you're looking at what? Mitchell Robinson, who are the top free agent centers?
Ooh. Yeah, you already started with a rough one.
He's a bit of a problem.
That's the nicest way you can put it.
Rolo
will be a free agent.
I try not to throw the off the court stuff off into this stuff too much because it's not fair because it's not sourced and everything like that. So
no, I know.
So Nurk is probably your top free agent. Thomas Bryant is a guy that is out there. Obviously Bamba's out there, but he's an RFA. But then you're basically getting into the old heads: Dwight, Ed Davis, Ennis, DeAndre Hassan. Mitchell Robinson, Naz Reid, Biyombo, Garza, Damian Jones. It's not a great list. Mm-hmm. And that's why if they're going to do something, it's going to be through a trade. Because they're not going to sign and trade him. They're not going to sign and trade Nurk. Like, no team is signing and trading for him. And somebody in the comments says Nurk is trash. Nurk is not trash. Nurk is a good player.
Nurk's not trash.
No, he just does. Listen, you don't put up 17 and 13, even if you're not that efficient without being a good player. Like, that's a real thing. It's okay to just slow your roll on that part. Like,
you can just be tired of it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Be,
and that's
he needs to go somewhere.
Like, we've seen this before. We've seen this experiment. We did running it back for the 7th year is not something we need to see. It's not like, well, Maybe. Because we've done that. We've run up against that wall enough times. But in the off chance that they can find a way to take what they have here, I won't say his name because I don't know if he wants me to say it or not, but we were talking back and forth before we went live, and you look at a possibility. Charlotte is rumored to be involved, or won Nurkic for a couple different times now that I've heard his name pop up in relation to Charlotte. You take Eric Bledsoe's expiring contract in Nurkic, and you send it to Charlotte, and you take on Gordon Hayward and PJ Washington. You get them off those other years of Gordon Hayward, and you get a player I think that would complement Portland pretty damn well. And you take the package that you get from CJ McCollum, sending him to New Orleans, and you get a Miles Turner, and you use those other pieces that you get, and now you've got a Dame. You re-sign Ant. You've got a Dame, Ant, Hayward, PJ Turner roster. Or if you have to send PJ Washington out another deal, you can find somebody else to kind of slot in there at the 4.
Or Jaylen Brown wants to come out of the West Coast.
Here's something else that matters in how this trade was handled, which is it's really, really frustrating in the sense of, like, it would have been very cool to see this play out otherwise with really no impediment. There is nothing stopping Nasir Little from getting on the floor and starting next year at the 3.
No, he just needs to rehab and work his ass off, which I think we know he will, and he could be right there for it.
And again, one thing we haven't hit on much, this is the big one. They're going to tank.
Oh, they're going to tank hard.
They just sent out 2 starters for guys for a very, very young guy who spent most of his time in the G League.
Spare parts. I mean, one dude is a fringe NBA player. Another dude is a two-way player. And the other one is at the end of his career. I mean, and probably won't play, as you mentioned, won't even suit up as a Blazer. I think that's an important thing to note here. And I understand that losing games is not the most enjoyable thing to watch. But I think most people that are at least part of the Jacked Ramsays community, and I would assume a lot of other Blazer fans out there, you know what this franchise is facing right now. You know where they're currently sitting. They have a real opportunity to get in that top 5, to really face plant. And if they get rid of CJ, Nurkic, and their returns are either moves they're going to use again for a different trade or guys that are coming in that you kind of want for next year. Like if you go get Miles Turner, he's out.
He's out. He's not playing the rest of the year.
He won't play the rest of the year because he'll know the deal. He's coming back next year to play with Dame and be the.
And if it's multiple parts going out for him, the Blazers go get the 10-day.
Yeah,
they'll find them.
10 days.
Yeah, and they'll just get big after big after big to slot in there, and
we do live shows where we're like, "What's his story?" And we do quiz shows like,
"What college did he play at?"
Yeah, and
what JUCO did he come from?
The real chance, Danny, that if they can manipulate this the right way, they can be a bottom 5 NBA franchise. That's not crazy to suggest right now. They're not that far away already. So it's quite evident that they're headed for it. They know that they need to head for it because here's the other part. You know, I saw Cov, Norm, CJ, Nurk. I see that and I'm like, okay, 4 assets. And I see people go, well, we just wasted 2 of our 4 assets. No, you didn't.
Not yet. You didn't.
You traded 2 of your 4 players. That draft pick is a bigger asset potentially to you than maybe 3 of those 4 players. So it's like that matters too. That draft pick is basically huge capital that you could maybe flip to go get another piece to help Dame next year. Because that's the thing. That's right. We talked about Medina. Joe brought that up. Joe basically said without saying, we're not blowing it up, but we understand in certain situations what we need to do. Go get a good draft pick, flip it, because this franchise will not completely tank out like Oklahoma City. Their owner and their ownership group will not allow that financially. So what do? The best thing to do is get everybody healthy, and you flip the roster, and you say,
make an
now
organizational change.
Yes.
Tanking does not come from players or coaches. It comes from the organization. Always.
Yep.
If any of these guys suit up which I would imagine Keon does for sure. Justise could. I would be very surprised if Eric Bledsoe suits up for the Blazers. I would. I do think they are going to try to move him between now and the deadline. Maybe they keep. I don't know. Maybe because they need a body. But I don't know if does he even report to the team.
Well, can I just throw out to you without interrupting what you have planned for this pregame / live show? If they get to the top 5 and they win the lottery, we're probably arguing, right? As a fan base, we're like, you use the pick. No, you trade the pick. No, you use the pick. No, you trade the pick.
Top 5 pick. You unabashedly use it.
You use it if it's the 3rd pick?
Unabashedly.
You're just like, we're just going to run this with Chet Holmgren?
No, you use it, and then you see what you can get for it.
Ah, okay.
But
I'm just saying, like, I think there's going to be fans that if they get the top 2, we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but if they get in the top 2, there's going to be fans like, don't trade that young asset.
Listen,
why would you do that?
Listen, if they get a chance at Jabari, like legitimately, and he's on the table, you take him. And the only way that you move him, and this is the needle that you thread if you're saying you're keeping CJ McCollum through the summer, is that you know that you're going to be bad, and you may have a good chance at tanking. Like really tanking. Which is, again, I'm not thrilled about. Not thrilled about in the least bit. But if again, what is one of the things that you and I have talked about even before Neil was fired? This organization, then their inability to take risks.
Mm-hmm.
What did Joe Cronin say he was going to do?
Take risks.
And again, anybody who is new here, who has never heard us talk before, we are not shills for the organization.
Hell no.
That is not going to happen here on this show ever. Ever.
They barely wanted me at games. They used to sit me in section 207. What do you mean I'm a shill for the team? No, that's certainly not the issue.
And I see somebody in the chat just popped up. Hey, Bree.
What did it say?
I said Bree Hudson just popped up in the chat. So we haven't talked about Ant yet. We're getting to it. But here's the thing. Again, I am not going to crucify Joe for this move until after the trade deadline, where I'm not putting him up, but I'm going, all right, we're going to sharpen the pickaxe, and then come come the draft night, if things don't change, then it's on. That's where I think the progression of this.
Well, I think another part that we need to kind of just throw in, just because we're talking about trades and what Portland did or did not do, should be noted that as we're taping this, Shams sent out a tweet basically saying James Harden wants out. Morey has long coveted to get back with James Harden. What piece would they trade to Brooklyn for James Harden, Danny? Ben Simmons. I don't foresee a thing where they flip Ben Simmons to Brooklyn, like just for the people who are like, Dame's going to demand a trade crowd. Please tell me the destination if Philly is no longer involved.
New York.
For what? You're not taking that shit.
Which is why I've always pushed back on this.
Well, I'm just saying, like, it's important to know, like, this isn't a move.
The return is not going to be there.
Dame's not going to be like, oh, I want out now. Like, he didn't know this trade was coming.
Yeah, and not only that, the Knicks are sitting there trying to maybe even move on from Julius Randle right now.
Yes.
So there isn't a destination that makes a lot of sense for those kind of moves.
I feel like Joe, and I know he's the guy that kind of, he started this trade, but I feel like Joe is also being punished for 6 years of Nealisms.
Oh no, he's absolutely, and that's somebody in the chat. I want to make sure I got it right. Jancy Orova says, "How can anyone be confident in Joe at this point?" I don't think you can be confident, nor can you really be angry, because it's an incomplete.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same grade I gave Chauncey Billups when we got to December, and we're like, how are you supposed to grade this? There's nothing, like, you've got injuries, the roster sucks, it doesn't make any sense. Guys are clearly unhappy. Guys are clearly pissed off. What's interesting is, and this is maybe our little bit of something that we will talk about tonight's game. With these trades being made, I wonder what that does to the vibe of the team right now.
Oh, I mean, CJ knows he's getting traded. It's already been a weird vibe. Like, if these dudes completely packed it in, wouldn't be the most shocking thing. I mean, Sands like Ant just saying, I'm going to go get 30. Bye, guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then Trendon Watford saying, okay, hey, I'm on a two-way thing here. I got to play my butt off. Like, outside of, like, a couple dudes, wouldn't be the most surprising thing to see him drop a game to Oklahoma City again.
Bob asked, does Keon have Ant potential? We haven't talked a ton about Keon at all. So Keon is an incredibly raw player with insane athletic measurables. I believe he set the combine record for vertical, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check it.
Who had it before him? Levine? I thought Levine had like a 46-inch vert.
Yeah, high flyer Keon Johnson shatters the 20-year-old insane vertical record.
What is it?
48 inches at the combine.
You imagine jumping 48 inches?
So the Blazers now have Anthony Simons, Nasir Little, Greg Brown, and Keon Johnson.
I would not be doing a podcast with you right now if I had a 48-inch vertical leap.
I don't know. I think he's shot about like 25% from three. He's incredibly raw. But what this does beyond get them under the cap, this also says one way to look at this at least. The early precursor is they're going to pay Anthony Simons and he's going to get $20 million. That's part of what this is.
Well, yeah, you got to free up cap space if you're going to pay a player.
Not
like
even the cap space because they've got the RFA, but
yeah.
Structurally.
Yes.
My frustration of building out this trade as it impacts Portland is this pushback on you want to see players in a trade that come back that are impactful, particularly if you're talking about competing. And that's where I've tried to emphasize so much over and over again. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And as we progress through the week, it's going to be interesting to see where that kind of fits into things. Because as of right now, Ant is slotting in as your starter at the 2 next year. But CJ McCollum is in the way. And if you're clearing out money to pay Anthony Simons, what does that lead you to believe?
Thank you for your services. Good luck.
See you later, CJ McCollum.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they just rinsed and repeated, and they got less in return for what they just gave up for Norman Powell. And that doesn't make a ton of sense. So before we keep going, thank you, everybody. We got over 550 people in here. Thank you all so very much. We appreciate you. I love you. Like, rate, review, subscribe. If you're new to the show, please click the subscribe button here on YouTube. It's free for you. It helps us grow the show. It beats the almighty algorithm. It helps us get some things done. So, and again, we will have the live show. The watch party for tonight's game, which I'm sure Brandon and I will continue talking about this stuff, which is why we're not doing a pregame show tonight. And then if you want to become a member, go ahead and click join, $2.99. You can come in and do all the live shows or the watch party stuff, hang out with us, watch the game together with everybody else and enjoy it. And we'll answer more and more questions as we get into that.
I just wanted to add, and I've kind of already said this. I think you've probably already said this, but for people just still popping in or whatnot, I just wanted to throw, everybody's initial thoughts on the trade, I think were largely the same. What? That? For Norm? Tell yourself this before, taking yourself to a level of it's this and it's that. Mm-hmm. Ask yourself, can a competent human being, and we've seen some incompetence, so I guess maybe I'm foolish for saying this, but do you really think Joe Cronin makes that move and thinks there's the first huge move that I'm going to make? And that's it. That's the move. I had to view this that's an unusually bad move for Norm. But what in this move could be immediately flipped or part of a different package? And so for the people that are sitting there today, pissed and you thought Norm was going to return this and return that, I hear it. I don't disagree with it. But it goes and it lends itself to what we said of ask yourself, do you really think Joe Cronin just makes that move and then that's it? That's a separate move. We're just going to walk with Keon Johnson and Justise Winslow, a second-round pick in the future, and Eric Bledsoe? No, it doesn't logically make sense. Now, if that happens, do what Danny said. Goodbye. You're an unserious franchise. I'll be back when you actually sell this damn thing and we have to completely restart it. But I think you need to put the eggs in the patience basket and tell yourself,
for 6
That
days.
move didn't make a lot of sense. Maybe there's going to be more to come.
6 days. And Kirk's already saying, I would say 60% Blazers done with trades. If anybody else wants to take me up on these transactions, I will gladly take money out of your hands.
Well, take beer bets with people. Like, do a Venmo thing. Like, hey, Kirk, if you think they're done, let's do one beer bet, and I'll Venmo you $6, or you Venmo me $6, and we'll do beer bets that way.
It's one of those things where it's like, I'm not saying this stuff just because I'm out here for clicks, guys. Like, I'm telling you guys almost verbatim what I'm hearing, and that's all I ever want to do with this.
But
stuff.
They're purposely trying to lose games now.
Yes.
It's abundantly clear. Who else is in the way of losing games right now? Well, Christian James is capable of scoring 22 and a quarter.
And Yusuf Nurkic. That is your list.
Yusuf Nurkic.
That is your list.
Two dudes. Yes.
Hell, Larry Nance Jr. may come back and be your starting center for the rest of the year.
No, I'm actually banking that he's done for the season, and they just won't tell us for some reason.
Well, no, he's supposed to maybe play tonight. He might.
Yeah, I'm sure. And then the inflammation hits again. It's like a goddamn edible. I'm high. 20 minutes later, oh, I'm really high. Like, that's what it feels like every time an injury happens with Portland. Every time.
Again, order of operations matters. Piece by piece, as you go through this, what happens next? If I was a betting man, I would bet that Eric Bledsoe could be and will be included in another deal. I would bet that Keon Johnson is the one player that's probably going to be on this team next season. I would bet the Blazers are not done making transactions. Now, does that mean that they're going to make a trade between now and the trade deadline? No. Is that going to piss me off? Yes. Very much so. Because that kind of complicates the tank that they've kind of created here. Mm-hmm. Unless all of a sudden CJ McCollum has a mysterious foot injury, which he does have a history of. It's a
half-hearted tank is what it is.
And that would bother me. Yeah. Because the half measures stuff, that's done. We talked about it for a second, but Joe's first real move was undoing Neil O'Shea's last moves. And let's kind of go through somebody else put in PEMDAS in the chat. Yeah, the order of operations. Let's go through the order of operations.
PEMDAS, I haven't heard that in a minute.
Mike Richmond basically said it earlier today, which is some combination of the Blazers' 2 first-round picks and Gary Trent Jr. transitioned into this deal. That's a bummer. But what this effectively is, you're tearing the Band-Aid off. You're tearing the Band-Aid off. And this is what we talked about literally yesterday in the Cronin interview, was at some point in time, the chickens are going to come home to roost. Like, it has to happen sometime. From the transactions from 2017 on, or 2016 if you want to talk about the bad contracts. The bad contracts, turning them into Hassan Whiteside and getting nothing for that. Getting nothing after you gave up 2 first-round picks for Zach Collins. You have to reset at some point. You can't just keep kicking that stupid can down the road. And I am looking at this right now and going, okay, I am going to clasp my hands and go, I'll wait. You got 6 days. Or if you don't do something by then, you better hard sell me on what's coming up next.
Danny, I've been waiting 5 years. What's 6 more days for me? Like, at this point, I've been waiting for the big blockbuster trade, and they wouldn't do it. I mean, how do you lose the Denver series and conclude that the best idea is to bring it all back? And then media and certain fans still bought it. Yes, Terry's gone. That's the reason we couldn't win. And then the season just completely crashed and burned. Neil's finally gone. If I'm willing to be patient through that, even when I was pissed and saying, well, okay, I guess if things can break their way. If I can do that, what is 6 days for me at this point?
And I've seen a lot of people saying, well, that doesn't mean you need to get ripped off in order to rip those Band-Aids off. I don't think the Blazers got ripped off, and here's why.
Don't you think they get the better asset if it's available? Maybe, just maybe.
The value isn't there.
It's not what we thought, yeah.
Covington, I know tell me, Brandon, have I tried to downplay Robert Covington's value for the last 3 weeks?
I mean, we've basically talked about how it's not really what people think it is. Like the idea that we're going to get 2 firsts back for
or even a first. That was never. I said at best, you're probably going to get 2 seconds and maybe a role player.
The first part, that was the most disappointing of the trade to me. It wasn't who you got back, because it just was like, okay, that's filler or trade material. It's that you didn't get a first. You couldn't get a first from the Clippers. They had no first available. I don't give a crap if it was a late first.
They gave them all up for PG.
Oh, that's right. They gave
like no picks left.
First-round picks.
I forgot about three picks and three swaps, 3 picks and 4. It's a lot.
I think it's 7 first-round picks if you're counting swaps.
I mean, it was bonkers stuff. That's why it wasn't there. The market wasn't there, and it's not because Norm isn't a good player. It's because Norm is a good player under contract at $18+ million in his year 32 season. He has 4 more years. That's why. You don't see guys on deals this long, because that's a massive... In a world where the NBA evolves to a year, maybe 2 years out, 4 years is a long-ass time to forecast. And Michael Wojnarowski says he scored like 30 last night. A lot of guys in the league who can score.
Well, I mean, this team specifically is like, it's not that it's not impressive. It's just like somebody's got to score 30 on this team.
Against that team.
The thing about Norm, somebody had said, I saw earlier, it said, you see this deal and your instant reaction is, why would the Lakers not do this? They need a scoring guard who can actually shoot, not Russ. And they need some defensive wing help who, 3-and-D guy. They don't have the money.
Or the assets.
That's the thing that people need to take into account here. Like, I think sometimes rumors actually end up being the worst thing for this league, because you see a rumor or you read a rumor and you think that's the fact, right?
The reality, when in reality, that's not the case.
So we had heard a lot about Norm and Jeremy Grant.
Mm-hmm.
So when Norm doesn't go for a Jeremy Grant, yeah, your instant reaction is Winslow, Johnson, and Bledsoe.
Which is why when I said, listen, if there's any truth at all that Norm could fetch Jeremy Grant, you do that unequivocally without question.
But don't you think, okay, so that's my point. Like, don't you think Joe Cronin does that?
Joe Cronin is making those phone calls.
But I'm saying if that was truly there, he would have made that move, because he would say, well, Dame's going to be healthy. I'd love to have a Jeremy Grant. Justin
Poole asks, how can the Clippers afford PG, Kawhi, everyone else, Covington, and Norman? Because they have Steve Ballmer.
Yeah, they don't care about the tax.
This is not spam anymore.
He's building a $2 billion arena by himself.
You're talking about one of the 5 or 6 richest people on the planet. He does not give a shit.
I think he's the richest owner, isn't he?
Yeah, by far.
Yeah.
It was Paul.
It was Paul, right.
And that's part of the problem. Is that I think the tax bill now for the Clippers is like $100 million. More than the Thunder's roster.
You traded 7 first-round picks, and you're paying $100 million extra on what you pay.
And you're probably going to be a play-in team this year, which is probably the reason why he wanted to do that, was to get a little bit of revenue, because PG probably isn't coming back and Kawhi isn't coming back. But next year, you're a title favorite.
Yeah, I ain't betting that team.
That is a title favorite if healthy.
Oof, I ain't betting that team.
Norm, PG, Kawhi.
Kawhi at what, 32 with knee problems?
PG
with shoulder issues is basically the last 4 or 5 years of his career.
Who would you rather be for a year? Portland or LA?
For next season?
Yeah. You shouldn't hesitate this much. You know the answer.
You're right, Portland.
Oh, you're a monster. You're a monster.
I think LA has just as much a chance to blow up next year as anything else, man. Like,
sure, they have a chance to blow up. There's no doubt about that.
That thing.
But they also have a real chance of, if they are healthy, of being.
If they stay healthy.
If they are healthy, they are not an outside dark horse team. They are a no BS title contender, which
They're
is why,
top 3 to 5 title contender for sure in this league.
Unequivocally.
No,
unequivocally. And that's part of what, just like, it's going to be weird who will figure it out. We got a question. Guys, who will start tonight? Ant.
That's a good question.
CJ. Larry?
Trendon.
No, Larry's going to go. I think he'll start.
Was he playing?
Yeah, I think he's going to play.
I'm surprised he's not asking to be traded.
Well, he may be, but he needs to show he's healthy before we get on the floor, which may be what is happening right now.
That's a fair point.
So he gets on the floor and Nurk. And then your backups are
Dennis.
DSJ, Trendon, Blevins.
Oh, God.
And Greg?
I hope Greg is above Blevins. I mean,
I'm just saying, I was going positionally. Like,
got you. Yeah, I mean, I'm more, look, this game, I couldn't care less about this.
I'm going to be in the game tomorrow night. I'm going to watch Giannis do unspeakable things to this team.
I would love to watch Giannis play.
He better not sit tomorrow. I'm going to be so pissed if he does.
It would be a good game to sit because they'd still win that game if he sat. But the thing about tonight is I'm more checking for what we brought up at the beginning of this whole live thing. What is that? How is that team feeling right now? They know this thing's being dismantled. CJ, I promise you, is either on the phone or already had the phone call with his agent saying, just be prepared. Joe's looking. He's looking to take care of you. Like, these dudes are being told. They know that they're being shopped. What is that? Now the first domino has fallen. They know more dominoes are going to fall, and some of them know they're the domino. It's not easy to go through these trades. I know, poor them, multimillionaires, got to move cities. I get that, but like this whole thing, this whole trade deadline, it can stress a lot of guys out, and some dudes also don't take that the right way. You know, some guys, they rightfully get pissed, and they're like, what am I going to put a lot of effort in this? I mean, James Harden hasn't even been traded, and he's not trying for the Brooklyn Nets.
That was fun last night.
I'm looking for that. I'm looking to see what you mentioned, the vibes. How is this team? How hard are they playing outside of a couple dudes? Because we know CJ Ellaby, Trendon Watford, Anthony Simons, probably DSJ. We know they're going to play like hell. Is CJ? Is Nurk? Larry might just try to be healthy and not
got to get through the night.
Crazy. Yes.
Which again, I wouldn't begrudge him one bit. We'll kind of wrap it up here in just a few minutes. Again, for everybody who's in here who's new, please like, rate, review, subscribe. If you're new to the show, if you're new to the channel, please click subscribe. Help us grow the channel. It's free. It's easy. It's there for you. Typically, we would do a pre- and post-game show. Tonight, we were only going to do a post-game show just because, well, we're spending an hour on this beforehand. And then we will get into that for the live show. Again, if you want to be a part, if you want to be a part of the watch parties, go ahead and become a member of Jacked Ramsays community, and that'll get you the links to the live show tonight. And you can, or the watch party. I keep saying live show. I'm an idiot. That can get you guys in there. So here's the deal. Overall, big screen, big level takeaway, Brandon. The deal in a vacuum is not good. For everybody who's out there,
it's a bad trade.
For everybody out there's like, oh, it's a. If this is the only deal they make, get pissed off in a week. Hold the rage, hold the anger, all of that for a week. Hold it for a week. That's why
go super sane once the trade deadline's gone, and this was the only move.
And when we have the live show on the trade deadline day, and that clock ticks, and we're 15, 20 minutes past 3:15, 3:30, and there's no other transactions being reported, you will see me go, what the and lose my collective shit.
And we will be doing a live show, and we will be going off. We will be sharing our opinions on what this organization has largely done now for 7 years, or I should say lack thereof, but that's 6 days away. So not a great trade, just right there, straight up. Let's see if this trade turns into some pieces for another trade, and then if they end up moving on with some of the vets that they've had here for quite some time.
So a couple people are saying that the Blazers made it official. Let me go ahead and...
Larry's playing?
No,
the trade's official.
The
transaction,
I just saw it. Which means all that means, guys, is the paperwork has gone to the league.
That trade is what it was.
So there you go. It is officially official. It means the paperwork has gone to the league and it has been signed off and ratified by the league. So
very, very quickly, because we've got some people in here, and I don't want to forget this. Just your general thoughts of the decision to let Gary go, and then seeing what Gary's been doing for Toronto the last 10 games, 8 games.
My frustration was always they were going. It was not that they traded Gary. It was that Neil would not. I mean, you can go back through my Twitter timeline during that entire period where I just kept saying over and over again, Gary Trent Jr. is a capable starting level 2-3 in the NBA. Over and over again, I said he's going to get at least $15 million. And people are like, he's not going to get that. He's only going to get $10, $12 million. And I'm like, okay. And the point of it always was just, I knew from discussions that they were not going to be happy with Ant there, with CJ there, and with Dame there, and the situation that we were basically in now, where he was going to be forced to be played out of position because he's better as a 2, he can play a little bit of 3, but it wasn't going to allow him to be in a position to, because his deal is going to be shorter because he had that second-round pick he was going to sign for the 3 years, right? Which means he would get to his next deal sooner, which means he needs to have time. He needs to be on the floor. He needs to be showing that he can grow and figure that entire part of it out. And those opportunities were not going to be here, and 100% of the reason why, because Neil Olshey did not believe he was, number 1, a capable starting level 2 guard that was going to fit alongside Damian Lillard because he didn't have the playmaking instincts. And 2, that he was unwilling, and this is very well documented at this point, unwilling to trade C.J. McCollum in order to clear that space. So both those things were true.
I'll believe you on the former. It's definitely the latter was existing the entire time that he was the general manager here. The interesting thing you said there, I don't know why, if you were Gary Trent, and I guess it's kind of dumb to play this game because he's already gone. He's killing for Toronto. I don't know why Ant would be a bother. Like CJ, I would get because you want to be a starting 2. The Ant thing, I would just view that as like another great asset to have with this team if you were a Gary Trent Jr. But I guess that's neither here nor there.
But I don't think it's inherently Ant. It's just that's another hurdle to overcome with as far as being on the floor. Look at him in Toronto. He's played what did he play? 56 minutes, 58 minutes the other night in that triple overtime game in Miami.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That man gets
He's
more
every night, all
burn
night.
than anyone on the planet right now. That was not going to happen here no matter what.
Did you see his post game, by the way? I think he froze. Gary didn't freeze. He's just not moving.
He's just not moving.
He didn't even respond. Like,
giant troll, and I love him. When we had him on the show, 3 times? I love Garrett Bear, man, and I hope that he continues all of his successes. I wish he could have stayed here. The flip side of that coin is Ant would not be having his opportunities probably right now. So you kind of weigh those two things together. But also, Neil.
Neil.
Put it up on the board, man. Put it up on the board of things that pissed me off about Neil Olshey over 9.5 years.
For all your Joe Cronin anger today, and I think if you just looked at the deal, I get it. For all of the Joe Cronin frustration out there, please remind yourself, Joe Cronin stepped in and he's had to undo a lot of what Neil was either unwilling to do or huge mistakes that Neil made throughout his tenure here. So, it may seem like a cop-out to say that for Joe Cronin. Again, 6 days, we'll see what Joe Cronin is made of. But I tend to look on days like today, and if I'm ever frustrated, I'm like, well, yeah. What did you say? The hens are coming to roost or whatever that chicken phrase is, you country boys say?
Yeah.
This is what you get when you run it back with Neil for a decade and he largely does nothing. It's like, oh, we have to react to this stuff.
You have to tear down and actually do something.
Yes.
And again, we have to rehash this last point, but it's and Michael Nunn says highly skeptical of Cronin. This was a loss. He might be too soft to get good value in a trade. I don't think that's the case at all. I think the value is greatly misunderstood. Do I think it was a great deal? No. But again, this is the next step. What happens here? If they do nothing, then you get mad. Then you get out the pitchforks. Then you get out the torches. Then you tune out this team because it is malfeasance.
Oh, they wouldn't have deserved your money, nor do they deserve your time.
No,
do not
invest in this team. If they go into I will say, come August 1st, if they are not, if they run out Dame, CJ, and Nurk again, I don't know how I can find myself supporting this unless something comes out of left field and they bring in a no BS dyed-in-the-wool star.
Well, and Danny, I think people are going to reach your point February 10th.
Yeah.
If this is it, it doesn't matter. You can sell, well, wait till the summer. We'll see what they do with CJ. People are done with that. That was supposed to happen last summer, and they didn't do it. And they tried to sell us how this is the move. Run 3-guard lineup, fire Terry Stotts, bring in Chauncey Billups, give him a 5-year deal. Like, they tried to get us on that, and it didn't work. So I think you're being a little more level-headed because I might end up being in the camp with most people if February 10th passes and this is the only move that we get.
The only reason I'm giving it more time is because legally you kind of have to, as far as like what you can do and like the time period that you have to get this done in. And the opportunities that rise, particularly if they are getting a good draft pick. That does change the calculus. The other part of this is I can't ask somebody to unfuck 10 years of Neil Olshey in 6 months. I just can't.
I know, but
I can't.
December 3rd is when he left. He's had since December to get on that phone immediately like, okay,
again,
how can I figure this out?
And again, this is one of those things where I look at it and I go, I'm not going to crush Joe until then. And if it gets to that point, ladies and gentlemen, I will unabashedly do so.
But so there's a scenario for you that if they don't trade CJ and Nurk, you're still going into the summer saying, well, let's see what they do.
Both is going to definitely stretch my patience.
I don't know if I have the patience.
Both is going to stretch my patience. That's kind of where I'm at. All right. Again, for anybody who's a regular, we are not going to do a pregame show tonight because we just did an hour on this. I'm hopping on the radio here in just a few minutes to basically go talk about this some more in the local markets. So, again, if you're new here, please like, rate, review, subscribe. Come back. We'd love to have you here. We'll have a postgame show. If you want to become a member of the community, go ahead and click join on the YouTube tab. You can become a member, and then you can be a part of the watch parties and the giveaways and all the other cool stuff we have involved, as well as some members-only chats like these, early access to content, and other things of that nature. I am sitting down to talk with Ant here in the next couple days to talk about his January and kind of what his outlook is. I was kind of hoping some transactions were going to take place so I could know how these things were going to line up, and there we go. So I'll be able to talk to him here in just a little bit. And so, again, thank you. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll catch you guys for the watch party if you're not there, for the post-game show. For Brandon, I'm Danny. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Find us wherever you get podcasts. We are part of the Blue Wire Network on social media, at Jacked Ramsays, at Danny Marang, at Brandon Sprague. If you want to email the show, jackedramsays@gmail.com. Until then, we will catch you guys here in a couple hours. Keep your questions coming in. My DMs are always open. I know a lot of you have taken advantage of that today. I have about 100, and I'm not even remotely kidding. It's been insane today. I can't imagine what happens when CJ finally gets traded. So, again, take care. Talk soon. Enjoy the game. Try to keep the blood pressure down. Take it from somebody who knows. We'll catch you guys in the